Hi guys, afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? This is quite an experience. It's officially the biggest screen I've ever done a presentation on, I have to say. I think only the IMAX will top this, so next year Mobiconf at the IMAX. Also channeling, there's a lot of pop there, channeling the spirit of Britney Spears right here. I've never worn a microphone like this. If I bust out a couple of moves, that would be a bit embarrassing. So yeah, my name, I should start with that. My name is Riaz. I am Junior Program Manager at Abbey Road Red, which is the open innovation department of Abbey Road Studios. Has anyone heard of Abbey Road Red? Yeah, a couple of people, yeah. My new favorite people over there. So the main focus today is a case study about our app, the first app from Abbey Road Studios. But I think to provide a bit of context for that, why is Abbey Road Studios creating an app suddenly? I think it's interesting to look at where we came from. So I would like to give you guys a brief history of invention to innovation at Abbey Road Studios. I'd like to introduce modern day Abbey Road Red and Topline and where they sit in that journey of innovation at Abbey Road Studios. And then we'll focus on user-driven design or user-centered design and how that helped to shape Topline's features. We'll talk about where Topline is now and what the potential next steps might be as well. So, and we've got enough time as well today. 45 minutes is a long time as well, so to listen to me. So I'm going to start with a bit of history as well, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. The picture to the left is Abbey Road originally, brought in 1929, and it is an innovation in itself because before that, people would take recording equipment to orchestral venues, to music venues, and record music there. Abbey Road was brought with the vision that this would be a purpose-built recording studio, and we'd bring musicians to the studio, so it started quite well. Picture to the right is one of the first recordings at Abbey Road, Land of Hope and Glory by Sir Edward Elgar. It looks really nice. They've taken out the stage since then. They realised you don't need to have a stage or audience in a recording studio when you're recording. There's a lot of noise in there, so, you know, moving on. And the guy to the left is a personal hero of mine. Does anyone know who it is? Shout it out if you do. Blumlein. Alan Dower Blumlein. And he was an electronic engineer at EMI who originally purchased the studios. And Alan filed 128 patents in the field of telecommunications, television, airborne radar, and also stereo sound, which is, you know, why I'm a big fan of him. Unfortunately, he was on a plane which was testing radar, and the plane crashed, unfortunately, and I feel like if he was around with us for a bit longer, he would have done a lot more. But people know of him as the father of stereo, and the story goes that he went to a cinema and saw a moving image move across the screen. And at the time, there was only mono sound, so the sound was just coming from a fixed point source. And he said, hang on a minute, that, you know, in real life, I would have been able to track the sound. So why is that not happening in the image? So as you do on a normal day, he went home and invented stereo. So, you know, just as you do. But more so recording techniques and reproduction techniques that we still use today. And he took the music industry out of the mono era into stereo, which is much more similar to how we hear in real life. And it's special for me as well, also because a lot of this research was done at EMI's laboratory and also at Abbey Road. And now myself, I'm doing a lot of research into spatial audio, which is 3D audio. So we feel like it's been a nice progression of mono to stereo to 3D at the moment. You can catch a video of them on YouTube. It's hilarious of them testing stereo, walking across the screen, you know, 1, 2, 3, and it works, you know, and these were the really early stages of stereo, so it's quite exciting. The original Red department, spelled R-E-D-D, was formed in the 1950s. And their job was to create recording equipment for the studios. Before then, they were licensing from other people, so they wanted to build the stuff in-house. They created, among lots of other things, They created some of the first mixing consoles that had faders, as we all know of today. They also created some of the first mixing consoles that were capable of dealing with stereo sound, which was a big thing. You might recognize those guys on the right there as well, sitting behind the desk. And another example of innovation at studios is Waves. If people are familiar with them, they do pro audio plugins, software plugins. My colleague works very closely with them to model those plugins on old blueprints off the desk and digitally model those components so we can create plugins, which means people can get the sound of Abbey Road wherever you are in the planet. So it's another example. Another one is quadraphonic, if people are familiar with that. So stereos with 2 loudspeakers, and quadraphonics with multi-channel system with 4 loudspeakers, 90 degrees between each one. Pink Floyd did a lot of testing with this, with Dark Side of the Moon. So, but it never really took off, right? It's about convenience. And so not only with stereo for music, but Abbey Road is been a bit of a barometer over time, you know, with audio innovations, technology developments. And another one is Dolby Stereo in theatres, right? So if Blumlein was alive to finally, you know, go to a theatre and have Dolby Stereo or surround sound, I think he would be happy. And Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of the first film scores recorded there. And then Star Wars and every Star Wars since then, and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, you name it. And that Studio One's just got that characteristic acoustic fingerprint that you can't really get in many other places. So that's Dolby Stereo in selected theatres. As well, DVD, video 5.1, going on to stereo, like surround sound 7.1, and moving to the modern day, Dolby Atmos, if you're familiar with Dolby Atmos. So in cinema systems, having speakers all across the ceiling, on the walls around you, and using clever signal processing, you can move sounds as objects around the space. And recently, you know, we've built a mix stage at Abbey Road Studios as well, so now you can not only record the film score, you can also mix it in surround in the penthouse, and then you can also go to the mix stage and mix it to Atmos as well, and to image, so we can do the whole chain. There's only a few studios that can do that. And that's a picture of the Atmos system there. 43 Dynaudio speakers, that's amazing. I've heard like Elton John mixes, as well as the film stuff. We've heard like Atmos mixes of Elton John and the Beatles, and they're quite immersive and sound fantastic. So we're up to the modern day of the studios. It's still a working studio. I don't know if people are familiar with Abbey Road, but it's so funny walking to work because there's so many tourists, right, walking across the zebra crossing and everything, trying to recreate the Beatles. I'm just trying to get to work. I'm struggling to get through them. I'm nearly run over every day. But unfortunately, I'd love to say, let me take you to the echo chamber, you know, where they did a lot of recordings there as well, and let me take you to the plate room on the roof. But it's a working studio, so we can't do that. So I would encourage people to have a look at the Google Look Inside Abbey Road, which we did with them, and they used the camera, and you can go inside and look around in VR 360. It's one of the best orchestral recording spaces in the world, in my opinion. Studio 2 as well, that's actually how Studio 2 looks like inside. So, and this is what it looked like in the days of the Beatles as well. So you know, similar floor, you know, the white baffles you can see on the right, that left picture. Even some of the acoustic treatments of ceiling, you know, it's weird. You like step back in time when you go in there. Studio 3 is a lot more futuristic looking compared to Studio 2, and that's a picture to the left. This is one of the spatial audio research experiments we did. It's like over 100 channels. It was absolutely horrible. But like I was saying about Blumlein, you know, it's nice that we're pushing on from stereo and exploring that here. More recently, and this ties in with some of the user-driven stuff, more recently we opened 2 new studios. Still, you know, SSL duality desk over there on the left, same outboard equipment you can get in the other places, studios, you know, same recording equipment. The difference being it's much more accessible now. So we've got a new generation of artists, songwriters coming into the studios and being able to use the facilities. And that links with Topline because And we've got this new generation of people coming into the studios, and we want to engage with them and talk to them and learn about what their recording process is, what their workflows is, what they think their barriers to development are. And Topline came out of that kind of progress. I'm clicking a lot now, so I'm going to save us all from listening to that. So keeping on to the modern day, Abbey Road Red, where I work, it's the Open Innovation Department. We run, the centerpiece of Red really is a music tech incubator, and we do a lot of academic collaboration, which feeds into the open innovation kind of structure. Spatial audio with York, we talk to Queen Mary a lot for AI applications to music. So we do a lot of things as well as our research and internal innovation drive. And this leads on nicely to, as I was saying, some of our spatial audio research. We're doing fancy microphones, capturing audio in 3D, fancy microphone arrangements, and also VR. I wanted to touch on that because VR industry is booming. AR, MR, Magic Leaps finally lifted the curtains as well, and these kind of new technologies have created a demand for a new type of audio, right? Stereo just doesn't fit VR anymore, or AR. So we need a new 3D audio where you perceive sounds coming from all different directions. You can localize sound. So at the studios, predominantly, we record audio, right, figures. So we should be prepared, and we're looking at what workflows we need to adapt or change, or what recording techniques or mixing techniques, how you mix in 3D. So that's part of our research drive. Demix technology is a personal fave as well. It's source separation technology. So you can take a mono recording where there's no multi-tracks. You can't remix it, right? If everyone's with me. And then what you can do is you can run it through an algorithm. You can model the guitar. You can model the lead vocalist. You can model the crowd. And then you can separate them out of the signal, pass it to one of our award-winning mix engineers, and they can then craft a new mix. Sometimes, at a gig, for example, Beatles live at Hollywood Bowl, right? And sometimes you can't hear the vocalist, or the crowd's too annoyed, or whatever. So, and those recordings are captured in mono, analog sometimes as well. So to be able to remix those as well, this was something that was developed in-house by one of the system engineers. Shout out to James Clark as well. And other examples are Rolling Stones, David Bowie, so you name it. And this brings us, I know it's been a bit of a lengthy start, but I hope you guys had a little sneak peek, and I hope it set the context a bit of Topline. Like I said, Abbey Road's always been a barometer for audio technologies developments, and we've always adopted new stuff, research, explored with new stuff. And with the mobile app world, I think everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket almost. And that means most people have headphones, because headphones come with the phones. And I think that's given a lot of people more power at their fingertips. So when we're innovating with waves, or when we're building new studios, this is another way for us to think of how we can reach people, engage with people, and help other people who might not have access to some of the music-making technology. So I've tried being the key word there, to split them up into more digestible parts so we can go through it. And this is really the kind of case study that I wanted to talk about today. So introduce Topline. I mean, how many people have heard of Topline? It's okay, you don't have to lie. Yeah, you could have all just put your hand up there and I wouldn't have even known. So, but I'll introduce Topline to get everyone up to speed. What is it? Why we did it? And then really I want to focus on how we worked with musicians, and we took the user-centered approach. I've got some nice visuals and stuff as well to kind of support that, help you guys understand our journey. And then I'll talk a little bit about, we started on iOS, so it was always in our plans to bring it to Android users as well. It's a whole nother community there that we wanted to provide the tools to as well. So I'll talk to a little bit about Android, and also about Flutter, working with Google with the very early stages of Flutter as well, and how we presented at Google I/O. And at the end, I'm not a UX, UI designer. I'm very much in the music technology field. But we've worked really closely with Maquido on this, and, you know, we have a really good relationship, and I feel like we're a really good team together, you know, both in a different domain. You know, we're very much specialists in our field, they are there. Rather than do this, do that, it's been a learning process as well for both of us. It's an example of a synergistic kind of relationship, you know, where it kind of enhances the output, I feel. And we'll talk about some of the next steps as well. So what is Topline? So it's a free iOS and Android app, the first one from Abbey Road Studios. It's released late last year in 2017. So, you know, we're still working on it at the moment. And the main kind of point is that it's used to capture song ideas on the move. And I'll elaborate on that and how we got to that concept and why we think that that was, you know, the reason we should be developing an app as well. And just as equal to that, you know, being able to save, share, and to collaborate, that was something that we were hearing a lot from the younger generations. And just like we are kind of a bridge between academia and the music industry as well, and the recording industry, you know, we felt like we could use technology to kind of bridge that gap as well and help some young songwriters. So why Topline? Again, I'll get into this a bit deeper later, talking about how we worked with musicians to come up with the approach. But the main thing was identifying, like I said, identifying a need to capture the ideas on the move. It needs to be accessible to a lot of people, right? It can't just be for pro audio people. It can't. We didn't want it to just be for grassroots unsigned musicians or songwriters. We wanted it to be a utility tool, you know, for anyone who wants to use it as well. And that presents a lot of challenges. What language do you use? You know, who's competent with BPM or the other stuff, you know, so, and how do you use it? You know, some people are very experienced in the studio, some people not so much, and that's not a problem. It's just a lot of thought goes into, you know, how do we present this app? So we did our own research as well, and like I said, this all got kick-started from opening the 2 new studios and seeing, you know, I mean, I love a lot of urban music, underground music, as well as classical music, and a bit of everything. But it was really nice to see more urban artists come into the studios as well, and younger artists as well. It wasn't just the London Symphony Orchestra, for example. You know, we had a wide range of musicians, as we have over time. But the 2 new studios opened up a whole new community. So we worked with and talked to and engaged with approximately 100. This was beginning with, you know, and we were talking to them, getting them into the studios, holding focus group sessions, you know, little post-it note discussion sessions, trying to break the ice and get people trying to understand, you know, our target audience, basically. And we spoke to a variety of not only songwriters, but also musicians and producers as well, because remember, these guys are all going to be collaborating with each other. It's not just the singer-songwriters. So, you know, we took that into account. And like I said, it needs to be inclusive, so not just grassroots and unsigned artists as well. And I suppose this leads in with a whole user-centered, user-driven design kind of methodology, right? It's like you get to know your target audience, not only characteristics, but, you know, what problems, what their barriers are to development, you know, what their habits are, and then finding a way to relay that info to the designers and the developers in a way where we all understand each other and we're all on the same page, and then involving the artists and the musicians, songwriters again to help evaluate feedback, give ideas, you know, feel comfortable to do that, give them a surrounding to do that, and then also then it becomes an iterative process, right? Then you're working together and you're constantly developing and you're adding these features in. So here's actually a few pictures at the top. I don't know what the resolution's like up there, but they were some of the case studies, you know, specific case studies that we did. And here's some of the, you know, pictures from the post-it note sessions and stuff. And there was lots of really, really good ideas. But the thing is, we kind of came up with it. We were seeing the same pattern emerging. You know, I need to capture song ideas. I'm always losing this idea. I can't just send it to someone. I can't do this, can't do that. So we worked with those guys on a set of initial features for the app. So we kind of decided that, okay, we're going to do capturing song ideas on the move. That's the most common one. A lot of these guys were saying they were using voice notes and stuff as well, which is fine. You know, look, before I discovered Topline, before Topline was available, I'm a voice notes guy, you know, always business ideas, because as we run the incubator, I'm always in the entrepreneurship, music, tech field. So if I've got any ideas for work or personally, I'm always on voice notes. It saves having to write it down and stuff like that. And now Topline it's like voice notes on steroids, I like to think, because it gives you a lot more functionality on top of that. But like I said, these guys were using voice notes, and they were dreaming and fantasizing about what other features they might have, you know, to promote collaboration, to capture ideas for more functionality. So these are the initial features right there. So syncing to your Google Drive and Dropbox, so you know you're saving some space locally. Also, we're all connected now, but everyone's got their Wi-Fi on or their 4G on. We're just like one big cyborg together, all connected. So we should make use of that. And connecting to the cloud and the Google Drive and Dropbox and stuff, which people were using the most, means you can share very easily, you can download, you can store all your projects there and just import them locally to your device. Like I said, importing audio, recording up to 2 voice tracks, so it's not just a top line, but you know, you might want to do a rapping track, you might want to do harmonies, that was a very common one, or ad-libs, or just an A-B between 2 different ideas, right, like vocal melodies or something like that. I really love the addition of notes, photos, tagging. You know, this kind of contextual information is actually really useful. And that's where I start using this for other things as well, because, you know, and that's, I think, a good thing. I don't think this is a negative thing. I think we were focused on a solution, but at the same time, you know, now we've come up with something, we're starting to realize this could be really good here, this could be really good as a learning resource for educators, this could be really good here. And you can actually tag using hashtags. So every business idea, I tag it with ideas, and then you can search from your tags as well. So it's a good way of kind of storing things. And like I said, converting and sharing via email and cloud, you know, so it's really easy. And this picture to the right here is an example of the library screen. So once you finish recording and you've added all your notes and stuff, I think it shows it. Yeah. And so you can just swipe, you've got all your tags there, you can edit, go back to the recording session, go back to your notes and everything, you can convert it to an M4A, you can share via email, so it's that easy. Those were the original features. So then, how do you relay this over to the designers and developers, right? I know these guys are specialists at this, but you know, it's trying to find that way to work, and I think we did that really well. The visual design brief came from us, and that was, as most of you maybe work for big brands as well, and you know what it's like upholding the brand guidelines and everything else like that. So, you know, we wanted to stay true with Abbey Road and the design language we already had. So this is just an example of that, a chevron floor. You'll see it, it's very common in Studio 1, Studio 2, you know, it's quite iconic. And that is where the other designs came from, the recording lights that we have outside every studio and mastering suite and mixing suites, you know not to disturb them. That shade of red, obviously the Beatles, lots of stuff, you know, we sent it over to the designers to work on. The functionality brief, however, so not just the design and how we want it to look and what we don't want it to look like, but also about what we want the features to be and how we want them displayed and all of that. A lot of that came from the users. So they were leading, you know, we were facilitating, we were the bridge there, but they were kind of leading because they were our target audience as well. And I have to say, you know, again, this process worked really well. And like I said, we're specialists in one field, the designers and developers specialists in another field, and I think that we worked really well to kind of relay this information, to iterate it. Here's some early designs, you know, shout out to Camille, one of our designers as well, for providing me with a lot of the images for this presentation as well. So I really want to thank him for that, which helps you guys get an idea as well. So you can kind of see some ideas of before, very early stages. And the logo wasn't so much user-driven, right? So it's not like all of the musicians were picking what it looked like, but this is just an interesting story because it was running simultaneously to the whole user-centered thing as well. And I think we juggled that quite well. But you can see the natural organic evolution in this picture of the logo as well. So it's not a huge thing, but I thought it was important, and it comes into the case study. Here's more of a direct example as well of how some of that design language was conveyed in the actual app as well. So you've got stuff from the old Red machines as well. Like I said, the recording lights, the shade of red. I really like in the middle column at the top, that kind of pattern. That is from this big movable baffle that spans from, you know, the floor to the ceiling, and you can actually move them to change the acoustics of Studio 2. And they're still the same, and it's quite an iconic design, just like the brick walls and the chevron floor. And if you look below that on the recording screen, quite subtly behind the waveform, you've got that same kind of design there. So I really like it. You know, the devil's in the detail a little bit, and they've gone in deep really hard here. And even with some of the original drawings and stuff from the original Red department and some of the early, you know, research and explorations, you can see the little resistor logo there as well. So I think we did a really good job of not only keeping it clean and you know, making it intuitive to use, but we also really, I think that, you know, Maquida did an amazing job at incorporating all of the stuff that's so important to us and our history and what we stand for in audio and development and stuff like that into the app as well. So I really thought that was nice. And then we get to the final designs, right? So this was, we've done our research, we've spoken to all the musicians, you know, we've done our own research as well, talking to our internal staff members. We've come up with a concept, we've come up with a set of ideas that's all been user-centered, and we've relayed that over, and here is some examples of the app as it is today. So this is where we came to. You've got the recording screens there, and then this is with the bottom drawer pulled up as well, and this is where you can put in all the title and contextual information as well. Really simple, really easy to use as well, and it looks great, I think. Here is like I said, the project screen again. So the other one was a recording screen. Once you record and you put all your information in, you can go to this screen, you can save it, you can search it, you can convert it, you can share it from there, and that's pretty much it. And you can cycle between the two screens as well. So, you know, I think it's important to note, you know, we're not trying to be something we're not. You know, there's some amazing stuff out there as well in the mobile music creation world, I call it. But Topline's, you know, it's there to serve a purpose. It's to capture ideas on the move. It's not trying to compete with the mobile digital audio workstation so far. So for what we wanted it to do, based on what we wanted in the research, I think it does that very well as well. And so late 2017, the app came out. You know, we got some good press on it, but the main thing was to see, does it serve its purpose? Right now we've created it, we've done some test flight stuff, but we really want to put it out there, and we really want to, you know, check whether it's doing the job that we want it to do. So this is phase 2 of the user-centered design. You know, we worked really closely with these guys to build the initial features and, you know, had them involved in that. But at the same time, we brought them back in, you know, and we built this community. You know, it's quite nice, actually. They felt privileged to come to Abbey Road, or that Abbey Road wants to engage with them. But really, for us, it was just about inclusivity and talking to more people. And we built this really nice community of people that were happy to test and really wanted to be involved in the project as well. The pictures are just a few of the case study individuals that we worked with as well, but we spoke to a lot more. And this time, I think a big point is it wasn't just these individuals, but it was actually an international community now, right? Because now the app's out there, you've got people in lots of different continents, countries, you know, in much different situations using the app to capture song ideas on the move. So it was really interesting to hear the feedback, and we kind of built this community as well where people felt comfortable to feedback and to converse with us as well. We did the same kind of thing, you know, not just grassroots unsigned artists, but the whole chain. So experienced artists, established artists, you know, that have had releases and are on tour and stuff like that, because we want it to be a tool that's inclusive to everyone as well. Same thing again, you know, focus group, discussions, you know, building that community to get the real life feedback, you know, and it's good to, we wanted to do this, but on the other side, you have to think of the reality of it. It's a free app, right? There's no in-app purchases. We want to give it back to the community as well. Development time costs time and money as well. So there's got to be a line, we've got to know when to draw the line. But for now, we're happy to keep developing. So I'll introduce a couple of these guys. So in the far top left, it's a duo called Indigo Palace. Bloom is just to the right of them. These guys were actually found by Spin Up, which is a talent discovery platform as well. And these guys were actually great allies in this whole thing as well. They really found a top use of the app. They really wanted to use it. They genuinely found it useful. And so, they were a big case study for us. To the right here, I'm not sure if you guys know, but we have Abbey Road has an institute as well. So it's Sound Recording Institute. So, and that's next door to the studio. So I try my best to engage with the students as much as I can, to be honest. Sit on their business pitches, try and help them, open communication, help them with their work. But at the same time, this time I was asking them, join this community, you're all music makers, you're songwriters, you're this, use it, tell us what works, tell us what doesn't work, help us to build a better app basically for you guys and for everyone else. So that's that picture. And then we've got a little feature on Sky Swipe as well, which is like the tech kind of Sky program, if you guys know about it. So if I press next again, so we'll watch this, it will save you like a minute and a half of listening to me, and we'll watch this. Hopefully the sound will work. Does the sound work?
Beatles, Elton, Kanye.
Okay, let's start again. Let's do this. Okay, we'll pretend it never happened. Right, so yeah, we had this feature on Sky Swipe. It's like the tech show from Sky. And oh wow, look at that.
And finally this week, let's make some music. All the greats have been here at Abbey Road over the years. The Beatles, Elton, Kanye, Taylor. Swipe first came here a couple of years ago after Abbey Road launched its incubator scheme for music tech startups. Now I've come back to check out a few of the latest innovations coming out of the studios.
It's changed my life for once or twice. Lucky snake eyes on the dice. Hit the jackpot, hit the gold. Won your heart and won your soul.
Indigo Palace wrote this song using the first app to be developed by Abbey Road Studios. It's called Topline, and it allows artists to capture lyrics and music, then share them with other band members instantly so they can add their own ideas and sounds to the same piece. It means they don't have to wait weeks until they're together in the same room to write a song.
You'll forget stuff all the time. That was like the main thing that he used to say when we got into the studio. It was like,
get there and
I had this sick idea and I can't remember it, and it was just like this constant struggle, and we spent half the session trying to like recreate that initial spot.
I'm lift, fell in love, now I'm on a trip.
So I've just sent this track, and then he's put it into this section, and then he can record and add his bits over it, the verse here, and then basically you save it, allow, and then now I can just export this.
All of your feelings are secondary. Heart turns so cold.
The app's not perfect though.
The main thing that I would like to see is potentially just a volume control.
That, and also adding a reverb audio effect, Jocelyn tells me.
Reverb is just a recreation of a room that you're in. Add a reverb to it.
Okay, cool. So I thought that was really nice. I was putting this presentation together, and this predated that, before we were invited to come here and talk about it. So I thought that was, give you guys a break from listening to me, but also it just kind of puts it in a nutshell there, on two fronts. One, because it's had impact. It's had impact on their workflow. It's had impact on their creative, journey. And at the same time, it also, not in a negative way, but it also, it shows an example of them saying, look, it's great and that, and I agreed, when I came onto the project, is that you don't need to be a mix engineer, but a basic balance of levels can make the world of difference. So, we're not putting people in front of a 90-channel console, but just to give them the opportunity to change the volumes as well. I mean, some people might have said, you should have thought that from the start, but, this is an iterative process. And one thing that I want to, point out here is, I'm very competent with audio recording and stuff like that, and people in the studios are, as you can imagine, so we're familiar with a lot of terms, and sometimes it was about reining ourselves back and where's that line between simplicity and complexity. You know, we want it to do something complex, but we need to use the language and the design and the accessibility to make it not so much look like that, so it doesn't intimidate other people, because we want it to be inclusive. So here, I mean, you can't go wrong with those colours, can you? So the green ones are, so these are the new proposed features. So after, like I said, we spoke to all the musicians and the people we spoke to originally, we spoke to the people we did the case studies with. Now we have this global community. We have apps at Abbey Road. You know, it's quite a vibrant email inbox as well. And we're constantly talking to people from all over the world. And so additional voice track was one of the main ones. People were like, look, it's great with a top line and a harmony, but man, I want to put another harmony on it, or I want to do something else, or I want to do my ad-libs. And that kept coming back to us as well. I have to say there as well, on that point, I use it a lot for recording acoustic guitar. And I like it. It's not so much, you know, beat-driven or tempo-driven or anything else. It's much more free-form. So I wanted an extra track as well. And volume controls, like Jocelyn was talking about, you know, to have that to create a basic mix for the balance. An undo button, we all got in a situation where we loved something we did, and then we accidentally recorded over 2 seconds and we couldn't get it back. So without it being super functional and like, you know, this huge thing, you know, undo button was quite an easy addition as well to, well, I say easy, okay, I'm not the developer, so, you know, maybe I can't speak for that, but I'm saying that, you know, it was an option to kind of help the guys in their workflow. The yellow ones are things we haven't got to yet, so we're working, you know, it was a learning curve and also a research, you know, task for us as well to find out what we want to do. And again, where is that line between simplicity and complexity? We can make it as pro-end as the Waves plugins we do, which model the plate room on the studios, or the echo chamber. But, you know, how do we then make that accessible for everyone to use? And with all these additional features, you're running out of space, right? So we're currently, you know, working on a control panel, you know, and this is just early designs and a sneak peek and some wireframes, but just, okay, we've got all of this functionality we want to add, we want to make it easy. How do we do it? You know, how do we make it look? Where do we put it? And that's been really interesting for me, you know, how deep this stuff goes and how much thought actually goes into this process as well. So that's where we are with current developments. And, you know, it doesn't stop there, right? And this was, again, this is quite a funny one because, you know, I've put the presentation together and I'm talking to my colleague about it, and he's like, hang on a minute, I did an interview the other day, because we're in quite a privileged position. We have all these people coming through the doors and recording, so sometimes, you know, they want to chat to us, sometimes we want to chat to them, you know, or both. And are you guys familiar with Nile Rodgers? Maybe, and Chic, so Niall's, you know, multiple Grammy award-winning producer, guitarist, arranger, composer, and he's also been announced recently as the Chief Creative Advisor at Abbey Road, you know, which is great having him there. I can see him jamming away, and he's bringing a lot of artists in as well and working with a lot of British artists as well, which is fantastic. You know, Le Freak, Let's Dance, Good Times, you know, playing the guitar line on Daft Punk's Get Lucky, you know, they're just a few examples among many, many more. But my colleague was speaking to Falami, who is the vocalist for Chic, and we're going to go for this again with the sound.
I absolutely think it's great. I think it's genius, and I can't wait to get it on my phone. There's a lot of ideas that I come up with, and if I don't have a piece of paper, sometimes I don't even go into my notes in my phone because I have so many notes, and then when you upgrade to your new phone, you know how the iPhone, I have an iPhone, but you know, you have all these things that are just piled on top of each other, and it's hard to go back and find it unless you're really organized at the time. So if I have one app that's specifically just for that, then it will always be there, and when my phone upgrades and the app upgrades, it'll still all be there, chronological order, I'm sure, very thing, because you technically have everything that you need on the phone to do that, but you can't have it all in one spot. And I was telling Mark, I was like, you know, one thing I would add is to be able to read the lyrics and sing the song at the same time. That's something that you can't do. I can't send a text message with a voice message and the lyrics so that I can read them together. You know, you could do it when you Shazam something, that's cool, but it's not my song, you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to see how that works for me too.
Cool, so it's another example, you know, and these are real life examples. I know I mean, Flammy obviously loves the app. It's, at the beginning, she's saying it's great and stuff, but it was really this point that I wanted to make, you know, so this was only the other week. And like I was saying, we have to be realistic. We can't just say, okay, right, everyone give me a feature and we're going to add that to the app. You know, it has to go through that filtering process. You know, we have to believe in it. But this actually sparked a big discussion, you know. It's like, actually, yeah, not everyone works in the same way when you're songwriting, and some people need to have everything pre-written so they can record. And actually, when you're typing notes on the app, I should have got a picture of this. When you're typing notes, there's a play bar at the bottom where you can play the music that you've just recorded or the imported track while you're writing the lyrics or you're writing your rap, but there's no record button, and that's kind of what she was alluding to. So that's something that, keeping with the agile workflow, it's in the backlog now, you know, and so it's added there. I'm sure it will see the light of day, and I think it's something really useful as well. You know, I'm conscious of the time, but I hope I've tried to paint a picture for you guys about how we deliberately took the approach of user-driven, user-centered design, how we worked with musicians of, you know, a variety of songwriters, musicians, instrumentalists, to kind of come up with the concept, and then feeding back with these guys, you know, constantly talking to them, iterating with the developers as well. And we're still doing that today, you know, so I hope that paints a picture for you. Moving on then very quickly, you know, it was always on the roadmap to bring it to Android as well. You know, we started with iOS, so we started to do that. It's been a learning curve, you know, it has been a learning curve for both us and also, you know, the guys that we're working with, navigating the audio development, but we really, you know, we really worked hard to get something out there for the Google I/O. You know, the event they had at Mountain View this year. You know, and I'm proud to say, you know, we really, you know, the guys at Mobiconf worked so hard in such a short frame of time to get something out there, and also at the same time working with Flutter. Now, Flutter, the SDK by Google, was actually in its really early stages then. Really early stages. So I think that, you know, it was really good that we took on that challenge all together. We got something featured in the Flutter showcase at Google I/O where these pictures are. We had good feedback. It's out of beta now, but we're still, you know, it's still lacking a few of the features, so we're still very much developing it at the moment to bring it up to scratch. Because remember, I'm talking about this whole community thing as well. You know, Android community is just, you know, as big and as valid, and we wanted to talk to those guys and engage with those guys too. So we couldn't do everything at the same time, but it's happening now. And you know, that picture is probably how we made some of the developers and the designers feel at times, you know. But because we deliberately chose to take the user-centered approach and the user-driven design approach, it meant that not only us, but also the designers and developers very much had to adapt to the kind of function, the briefs that were coming in. And you know, that really pushed all of us sometimes as well, and trying to find the best way that we thought we could, you know, make these things a reality, or these ideas and concepts a reality. As I've been alluding to as well, you know, the balance between simplicity and complexity is, you know, a really difficult one. You know, visibility of everything, the accessibility, how do you do it, how far is the reach, you know, and that was a learning curve for me. I didn't really think that deeply sometimes, you know, what's the research that says what's the most awkward place on the screen and all of that. So it's actually been a really nice learning curve as well for myself and the guys at Abbey Road, but also the guys at Mobiconf working with us. And you know, to really finish on that, you know, we couldn't have done it without a great team. And I know it sounds a bit like a plug, but, you know, like credit where credit's due, you know, and I feel like we pulled our part, and the guys at Mobiconf really did, and, you know, working the agile workflows, learning more about that, how those guys work, about mobile development generally. You know, we know a lot about music tech and microphones and this and that and what software you can use, but learning about the mobile world really was really exciting to us, and we learned a lot. And, you know, I want to take this opportunity as well to, you know, shout out Camille, who helped me with a lot of the visuals for this, and, you know, project manager Isa, Anna, Camille, Rafa, Jacek. I'm sorry about my pronunciations. You guys are probably thinking, man, this guy, like, I've probably killed those names there. You know, my pronunciation isn't best in English at times, so I've probably, so yeah, apologies for that, but I wanted to take this opportunity to, you know, thank them as well, publicly, for being such a great team. So what next? I've got a minute left. Thank you for sticking with me. I can see some people are just like, come on, but we're nearly there. We're nearly there. So next steps, you know, Topline, like I keep saying as well, you know, we can't just develop forever. We have to be realistic, and we want to keep it free. We want to let people we want to make it accessible to people. But for me, my head's a lot in MIR, music information retrieval, AI applications to music, and I think Topline is such a great vehicle for innovation now. You know, it serves its purpose, it's out there, people are using it, great. If I want to add real-time pitch tracking so you can train your voice, you know, if I want to add different feature extraction stuff, if I want to play around with stuff, if we do want to, then we have a vehicle to innovate with that's on all the users' devices as well. So that's kind of where we are with Topline and the next steps. There's more and more processing power, like we're saying. Like I was saying about spatial audio, that's something I'm very passionate about. I think it's one of the next frontiers of audio and audio engineering. And for each track, you need to have multi-channel tracks, right, to hold all the spatial content. And having much more processing power makes me excited about the capabilities of immersive audio on mobile devices. And I actually had a demo of an app where you could change between stereo and immersive at the same time as listening and streaming and stuff. So it's quite exciting. These things are happening, and working for the incubator, we see a lot of this stuff coming up, and it's exciting me. Like I said very quickly, the future of AI in general, as a good thing to help us, you know, especially with music. I think there's some really cool applications there. And one of the companies in our incubator, HumTap, is, you know, you can hum into the app, you tap into the app, and it does pitch detection. It will create a melody out of your hum. It will create a tap, you know, and then it just spit out a song for you. And, you know, some people, you know, it's quite controversial. Some people might say, you know, is that a good thing? But I think it's a great thing because, one, it's pushing the boundaries of what's available, but also it's democratizing music making. It's making it more accessible, and I think that's a great thing, you know. And I'm in a privileged position to see people using these technologies. So in general, to finish it off, guys, thank you for your attention. But I'm excited about a future for mobile music making, you know, more processing power, more immersive audio, not just stereo. Everyone's got headphones to listen to binaural content. I think there'll be a new wave of mobile music making apps as well, and Topline's just part of that, you know, and I'm quite excited about that for the future. So thank you. I know I'm probably horribly over time, am I? I was worried about being under time, and now I've just gone on and on. So I don't know, guys, have I got time for some questions? Or yeah, it's okay. I'm getting the A-OK sign. Also, I've been told that there's 3 of these for the first 3 people answering questions. I wish I had a camera here. It was just as soon as the hands go up. My friend over there, yeah, is there? Can you shout, or do we have microphones? Or brilliant. Yeah, shout. Come on, I like that. Mm-hmm. This one looks really promising. Oh, thank you.
I'm curious if it. Thank you. Okay, it's more convenient that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, the app. Was it like user data driven? Like you probably had an idea for the app for the musicians. You had access to musicians, then you run the community and gathered feedback from that. But I'm curious if you had assumptions about the functionalities in the app that eventually were put down. Like you had idea, okay, we need this so bad, and then it turned out nobody is going to use that, or like the functionalities that didn't go well. And when did you realize that?
I think one, for the functionality, yes, there were definitely a lot of ideas that kind of got dropped as well. You know, we could definitely talk after, we can go into some of this stuff in more detail, but the concepts as well, there were lots of concepts that were drawn out, you know, off the top of my head. One was like a Tinder for musicians, you know, that people wanted to, you know, I swipe, cool, I listened to that, yeah, that sounds good. And there were lots of really cool ideas, you know, and it was a really difficult process to go through, you know, and that's why we felt it would have been one-sided if we went through and assessed everything and said, we're going to pick this, you know, and that's why we kind of used the community we had to pick those features. Does that kind of answer it a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I like the Tinder idea. But
Yeah, okay, brilliant, cool, yeah. I mean, send it apps at abbeyroad.com/apps and apps at Abbey Road. Send us the idea, mate. I'm more than happy to do that. And there were lots more others as well. I don't know if I can get to the slide yet, but there was actually on the post-it notes, you guys probably can't see, but there are other ones. Help Me Find My Sound was another one, you know, and another one like Shazamming for samples and stuff like that, where you could do, you know, feature extraction on just an audio signal, and that could then drive different parts of it. But actually, some of the feedback we got was they didn't want apps to be too intrusive, right? I was like, oh my God, there's this amazing academic research about this, and we have to integrate that into the app, and it's going to tell you what key you're in, and it's going to do this, and it's going to do that. And actually, users were like, well, actually, this is the very initial stage of creativity. You know, we need some space to grow. And I was quite surprised in a positive way at how many people were like, it's great as a tool, but at this stage, I want to have the freedom and I don't want things to be too intrusive. So actually, that's where we toned it back a bit in terms of simplicity. And it's still, like I said, a good vehicle for experimenting with some of these new ideas and stuff now that we've got a framework. But we decided to go with the song ideas for musicians.
Okay, thank you so much.
No, thank you. I promise you've got one of these. They're not just empty boxes, so I'll come collect it at the end.
Okay, Naomi, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It was exciting.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is connecting with the previous questions because, yes, you told that your research around the needs to build this up based on the professional songs artists and the song writers. But now this application is in common users, so needs from the professional, I think, are different than the common people. And my question is now, you know, one of the needs probably for the professional artist is good quality for the recording, some notes, some ideas. And do you perceive to develop, because every device has the same microphone, the same quality of the physical microphone, so this software supports in some case better quality of this physical microphone, this physical device, you know, from the perspective.
I mean, just to...
Because software is one of good software, but in the same way, good physical microphone is, of course, important. So
absolutely. You know, we have an 800-plus microphone collection, the King's microphone that you used to use, all these classic microphones we keep in top working order. So I agree with you. There's some bits of hardware that are just special.
To reduce noise, you know, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, that's something we're thinking about. You know, if you're familiar with iRig and these different bits that you can plug in and stuff like that. So, you know, we're thinking about these applications. Firstly, it's just as people are using voice memos, we're using the microphone there. But like I said, my friend, it's, you know, there's lots of possibilities that we can explore. But to get back to your first point where you're saying the needs of the professionals maybe don't match the users. And, you know, apologies if I didn't say it clearly enough, but actually we were talking to a lot of grassroots artists and unsigned artists, so they weren't professional musicians. They maybe had made the decision that I want to follow this as a career, but they weren't yet established. So actually those guys don't have many recording studios, they don't have all the access to the equipment, so we were listening to them a lot. And then when the app was out there, we were not only listening to those guys, but also all the professional musicians that had access to the apps as well. So yeah, I agree with you that the professional musicians might have a different, might want different features than beginners or users or grassroots artists. But we were talking to both of those, and that's what made us decide on the initial features. And moving on, yeah, I mean, I would like to, I mean, Abbey Road is a professional audio recording establishment, you know. We want to keep file sizes low, we want collaboration, we want this kind of stuff locally on the devices, but it's something we're thinking about as into, you know, how do we optimize it, you know, I'm sure there's a better balance between recording quality and optimization. So that's kind of what we're researching at the moment. But good questions, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got one more free now. I'm struggling to see a little bit about...
Nie, tam jest mikrofon drugi.
Okay, hi. So apologies in advance, but it's going to be a technical question.
Okay, and apologies in advice. Remember, I wasn't the one doing the code and stuff, so I wish I could, but you know, we can talk after and I can find out the details for you.
Yeah,
so.
but it's going to be probably quite easy for you to answer. As I understood, the iOS version was the first.
Yeah.
And it was probably written in the native, it's a native application for iOS. And then you decided to port it to Android, and then the decision was to use Flutter. Are you going to merge those two code bases to use only Flutter for both environments, or you want to have two code bases and maintain both of them?
I think it's something that it's an option, right? It's an option for sure. I can't give you a direct answer on that. I mean, I know what Flutter provides and I know where it's going to. It was also a challenge for us to work with Google, and we were talking with them at the very early stages, you know, about using Flutter and learning about it and exploring about it. But baby steps, right? You know, we had to come up with the idea, and it was a long-winded process. We had to get something out there. We chose to develop on iOS first. Now we think that it's stable and it kind of serves the purpose, and it's got that extra functionality as well from the feedback. So now we're moving to Android. We're exploring with Flutter. I haven't got an answer to your question, but we've definitely had discussions about it. Yeah.
And what was the main motivation to use Flutter? Because my understanding is that the main motivation for people to use Flutter is to have one code base for the both environments, right? For the iOS and for Android.
Yeah.
What was your motivation if you didn't thought about merging those code bases?
Well, no, I think, you know, to reply to that is that it's not that we didn't think, you know, my answer is that we are thinking about it. Okay. But we haven't made a decision. So you're asking me if I've made a definite decision, yes or no. And I'm like, no, we haven't. But yes, we are definitely, we have thought about it, right? The motivation as well, you'd have to speak to some of the developers as well, you know, because I'm given one side of the story. Okay. I'm sure there's a few other sides, you know, and that you'd probably be able to understand that a lot more. But for us, it was about, you know, going into Android. Flutter was something big happening in Android at the moment, and we were starting to develop for Android. So rather than just close our eyes at it, you know, and it was new to me, totally, you know, and it was a learning curve for both developers as well. But, you know, why not? You know, let's start exploring and experimenting with that, and who knows where it might get to. Okay, thank you. Yeah, cool, brilliant. I think is that about?
I don't think we have time for more questions.
It's about 3 hours long, this thing now. So sorry. Yeah.
We have next presentation in 2 minutes.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm always happy to speak to people, and I'd be more than happy you've got a question. I'll be hanging around. So please come and find me, come and talk to me. If anyone doesn't want to talk publicly, but you just want to have a one-on-one conversation, I'm here and I'm more than happy to speak. So just come, you know, feel free to tug on my arm and just ask the questions. Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate your attention. Thank you.